Welcome, PTL gamers, to my first ever power rankings for this particular league, and more specifically the Gen 7 season that we're doing. So I'm just kind of gonna freeform this. Uh, I got the teams in front of me, thanks to a kindly soul compiling them all together, and I'll just be kind of giving my thoughts on each of them. Probably rank them at the end. It'll be pretty loose, the numbers thing. I think my actual criticisms are pretty justified for the most part, but the number thing obviously take with a grain of salt. Might makes right, and if you win a bunch of times, even if I think your team was shit, well then, yeah, it was probably pretty stupid for putting you low. But it's just based on loose predictions. Who knows? I could be wrong. I could be right. Um, I'm probably right, but I guess prove me wrong. It's that kind of thing. All right. First up, we have Shenanigans from Ken and Joe. When they were first drafting their team, I got a little concerned because it looks pretty slow. I saw stuff like Mega Venusaur, Celesteela, and Cineroar circuitry, which is all great, but pretty not really high speed tier. With the low tiers, really rounded out the speed issue. We had a lot of nice speed things picked up, like Zygarde, Starmie, Xiao. I don't really love Zygarde 10% to be honest, but Starmie and Xiao are really quite good, and they help. I think Miss Maggie's a solid too. So the 105, 115 speeds really help the team. And Miltank's pretty good too with 100. So I think the speed really balanced out. I think the reliance on rapid spin is interesting. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. Your best removal really by far is Starmie with rapid spin, but then Armaldo also backs it up. Um, and yeah, you do have Defog and Florges, but Florges can't bring Defog all the time because sometimes it wants Heal Bell. But I think having a good spinner like Starmie and then a backup like Armaldo can work, and then Florges is the option. I think there's like just enough removal on this team, so that's definitely a good point. It's solid all around, but nothing would particularly worry me. I would say from aside from Celesteela, what it's kind of is for me is all these Pokemon are pretty predictable. Like you kind of know what they're gonna do going in, which isn't always a bad thing. Like a lot of times it's predictable Pokemon that could be the strongest. But I just think it's one advantage you might have with this team where Celesteela is the only Pokemon here where I could see it being more of a wild card, whereas everything else you more or less know what it's going to do. Maybe you can do some weird stuff with Min Chao versus like Assault Vest Regener, Ban High Jump Kick, but I don't know. Most of these I feel like the roles are very similar week to week, which is fine ultimately, but I think that's one slight issue. Next up, we have Phantom Berserkers from Xiao. Those are really some solid drafting, I'm going to say. Good Firewater Grass Core can't go wrong with, especially with a double fairy, I think is wise because Tapu Bulu's not really uh, the most. It can't do what you wanted a fairy to do all the time, really, which is switch into a lot of stuff because it has so many weaknesses. So Klefki helps a lot on that front. And then things like Crobat and Crocodile, just excellent rounding supports. Mew can do whatever the fuck. The speed tiers may have been a little lower because everything's kind of 100 or less, but at least Crobat helps with that quite a bit. As well as even though the team's like doesn't go over 100 a lot of stuff is still on the higher end of that 100 spectrum. So you'll have pretty good speed with this team, I think, especially with Crobat. Yeah, I just love it. I don't feel like that's a big weakness. It's really well balanced. It's going to be hard to take hits from this team and hard to break through it. So I think it's really. I guess Aurora's kind of sucks, but listen, it covers tight bases. We love covering all the tight bases for no particular reason. But that's really all it does. It's probably not going to come once because it doesn't even have Aurora Veil in this generation, sadly. Um, Next up, we have Sean with the Alola fantastic team, really above reproach. Very very sweaty, very try hard. I thought it would be fun to do something degenerate, so here we are. But yeah, it's pretty cringe to be honest, but I do think it is good. All right, next up we have the NATO Mondays from Paper. Holy shit, basic bitch Coco Rain, but it's still good. It doesn't matter how much you've seen it. It doesn't matter how much you know about it. It's going to be a pain in the ass for most drafts. Probably deal with just because of how outright strong Rain, Mega Swampert, and Cortana are in the rain, as well as things like Tapu Koko and Hawlucha working together. Um, I love Ditto. I haven't really seen it on a weather team like this. I don't know how it'll work or when you'll use it, but I'll be curious to see it. To be honest, a lot of things that are checking right anyway might be Scarfed. So you've got your Scarf Ditto against your their Scarf threat, which is just a coin flip. So that might be weird to see, but I don't know. I think it could work. The team doesn't really have a backbone, I suppose, ultimately, which isn't a huge problem. Something that's this offensively front facing as a rain team, but there are rain teams that can take hits normally, and this one just kind of has to fake it with Mesprit and Kangaskhan, so that might be a concern. but overall, really solid, really hard to wall. Houndoom seems kind of useless, but I'd really like to see it used well. I think that could be funny if we see some nice Houndoom strats. All right. Next up, we have Bussin from Tom. Good team name, Bussin. The way I'd put this is, I don't know. I really like Mega Altaria, and it's certainly backed by other formidable setup sweepers. There's a lot of good setup here, but what I would say is that it's your options here are kind of get good setup or lose because the long term durability and immediate power really aren't as strong. Um, like I guess you could do like Hitmonlee has a lot of immediate power, so if they don't have like a ghost type, you can just go high jump kick, go down with reckless. But otherwise, the immediate power isn't quite there. And the bulk again isn't the best long term either. Like Zapdos and Cofagrigus can hold out for some time, Scizor too, but it's not forever. They're not like dedicated bulky Pokemon, save Cofagrigus. Seismitoad too is kind of more of an all rounder, but it's still a very good team. I think your win cons are going to be things like Mega Altaria, it's going to be things like Scissor, Swords Dance, things like Superior, which is ultimately fine. It's just that's going to be your out every week. Um, let's see. The removal is quite good though, and it's at least good enough for what you have. And though I would say no hidden power sucks, this is probably the biggest sufferer from the no hidden power rule. Um, Obviously, lose Scissors Technician tax, the big loss, but also Superior really misses it. Zapdos really misses it. Being stuck with electric and fire coverage can kind of suck. You can use Air Cutter if you really do flying, but yeah. So yeah, no hidden power hurts this team quite a bit, which is too bad. But it's a good team overall. Next up, we have Serving More Suicune, solid name from Jordan. Everything here is really a nightmare to switch into. Kyurem Black is already like, oh, that's going to be a big hassle for my defensive mons. Then you see Mega Gardevoir. Then you see Volcanion. Then you see Zeraora as well. It's like it's going to be hard to deal with that. Even something like Decidueye could do a Spirit Shackle and fuck you. And then on top of all that, Zoroark could obviously be lurking around any corner, right? So it's going to be very hard to switch into. Though it is low on recovery overall with Rock's weaknesses aplenty. I mean, it's not like low on recovery, but like aside from Gligar, like the Decidueye with Roost, sure that works, but is that the most reliable and consistent? Not really, because Decidueye is not a huge tank itself. So I think you're going to be bringing Gligar basically every week because of its needed reliability on defog, hazard setting, and being able to recover and stay healthy with pivoting, which isn't a bad thing, but it's like it makes it a little predictable. And it's like Gligar's going to be there, but I suppose to be fair, that's only if you're taking that more defensive approach. Maybe if they go more, if Jordan goes more hyper offense one week, you could see no Gligar. And godly speed tiers, might I say. Zero obviously about as good as it gets, kind of the gold standard back in Gen 7. But then you've also got some nice things rounding up the build up to Zeraora, namely things like Cabalion at 108, Meteor at 120, Zoroark at 105, just really nice. And then it tapers off into your wall breakers and walls and whatnot. Really nice. Um, Next up, we have Double Spinning Edge from Bloke. I think this team actually looked extremely fucking annoying. Like, there's just so much shit here where it's like, oh, no, I don't think I can switch in. Mega Medicham, nothing can switch in. It's not like a bulky psychic type or something weird like Mega Sableye. Lycanroc Chandelure is going to kill all your walls. Rabambi with the speed lowering. Chorachi's just cancer. Like you've got, and certainly plenty of durability with Muck and Alomomola. But I guess one thing I did notice eventually, even though this team looks really menacing, is that there's not a lot of removal, and what's there is all rocks weak and not bulky, which is a major flaw. So Noivern and I believe Rabambi might get default. I could even be wrong on that, and if I am, that's an even more strong indictment against this team. But Noivern is at least going to be extremely overburdened with hazard removal, and that's kind of a major flaw for a team that otherwise seems quite stellar. And I guess you have to lean a little hard on Alolan Muck and Alamomola for durability, but that's fine because it's like, why wouldn't you? And the rest of the team is so offensively menacing where that's more going to be more where you're going than just with the bulk every week. Um, Next up, we have the Keicho Crusaders from Chrono and Devon. This is an interesting team. It certainly reminds me of the kinds of things you see floating around Gen 7, right? A more minimal base of bulk with some very hyper offensive aspects and attributes. A lot of glass cannons here. Um, it's a personal bias though. I think I prefer Rock's feet glass cannons like Blaze, Blacephalon, Weavile, and Mega Beedrill for bulkier teams. This is still good, but I think I'd rather, especially like Beedrill, which is weak to rocks and wants to be U-turning all the time, and Blacephalon, which is like a really big breaker but very glassy. I think I'd rather see something where I could, stall my opponent until just the right moment and then bring them out. But I think they could still work here. It's just you're going to be pushed to bring them out earlier. So you're going to have to get clever with how you use them and make them more threatening immediately for a full sleep as opposed to just hitting and leaving because the rest of your team can't support that for too long. And obviously Porygon, I say, I'm a little against this team's bulk, but Porygon 2 can hold on forever. I mean, Tapu Fini and Rotom have kind of timers on them, but Porygon 2 can hold on forever, doesn't get toxic, which Fini can help out with, so that is nice. Overall, I like this team. It's just, I think it's going to be tricky, going to require very skillful piloting in a way that's kind of risky compared to some of these drafts. Next up, we have Guababa from Tristan. This kind of just feels like random fitting of the name, which just seems like nonsense in a delightful way. This just seems like a random decent Pokemon thrown together without too much type overlap. I mean, still some type overlap, but not an offensive amount. There's just not really a lot of visible logic to it, I don't think, aside from like maybe some dragon spam and some setup spam to really wear down opponents. But like I don't know. Maybe that's the advantage of this team. I don't know how exactly to start building for it, just because it seems random. There's not really an internal logic to break down, I feel. It's just going to be kind of random stuff thrown at you, like you're doing a battle tower or something. But I think it could be interesting. It certainly has potential. I don't think it's a bad team. It's just I don't really understand it fully. Maybe I'm getting filtered. Um, but yeah, it's still cool. The Snorlax is good. All the Pokemon on the team are cool. Stuff is good to bro. So it's a cool team. Next up, we have Sleeping Snorlax from Lucky. This is a diverse team. This one might just be the best in the whole draft, dare I say, because you've got sand, stall, bulky offense, hyper offense. These all seem like very viable options for this team that can do effectively with a variety of sets, not necessarily being pigeonholed into any one role for any of those play styles. I don't have much to say because I just think that's really good. If I had to make something up complaint-wise, I'd say Virizion kind of sucks in my experience. I guess it serves a role, so Pex is an overburden switching into water types, right? But they are both weak to Psychic too, which I guess means that backup role can be a little weaker in terms of because they're both gonna have the same problems with like a Psy Shock or whatever. But that's a pretty big nitpick, as you can tell. Everything's good here. The speed tiers are pretty good. I guess you have one higher than 110, but whatever. Who cares? You have 210 and like things like extra drill and sand. So it's like and plus webs with Galvantula. I forgot. So just like there's really no big complaint with this team. This can do whatever it fucking wants, kind of. I guess Regigigas you're not going to bring most weeks, but whatever. It's a nice tank, honestly. It's something Regigigas can do that a lot of D type things can't. Where it's like you can spec it to be a weird wall against something that's going to otherwise roll you over. Not a wall, maybe about a check. So that's always an interesting option. Yeah, this team seems really good. Good job, Lucky. Next up, we have Willpower and Cocaine from Sin. Now, you see some sweaty mons here off the bat, right? You see a Megalopony or Tornadus Therian. Your Uxie's pretty darn good for draft, underrated, honestly. But I mean, things like Rotom Fan and Rotom Heat and Kyurem, which might raise your alarm. I think remember we're Gen 7, not Gen 8. But the rest of the team honestly balances out. Things like Golurk, Bisharp, Aselgor are more like interesting and cool options. Even Blastoise back at this point. So I don't think it's the sweatiest team around. I actually quite like it. And it's quite unique, and the removal is great, but the team is still aggressively rocks weak, which may make the long battles hard. There's again good removal because you get Blastoise with Rapid Spin, Rotom Fan with Heat with Defog, which can work, Tornadus T with Defog, which certainly works because of all the regions you get. But there again, it's just a lot of rock sweetness. So it's just they're gonna make those long battles pain in the ass, especially when there's not much reliable recovery here outside of Tornadus Therian's own regenerator, and obviously Kyurem can throw out roosts, but Ice Dragon, even though it's one of the better ice combinations. I'm curious to see how this one does. To be honest, I think it'll come down a lot to just the how you pilot it, but it seems like a solid team. Next up, we have Buy-in Blast from Deck. So I'm of the staunch opinion that Hardstall is not good in draft, but I think this team is newer to toe that line of like semi-stall draft where you still have you're not stuck entirely in the stall play style. Vaporeon's also a god, so good job on picking Vaporeon. One of the, probably maybe the best bulky water for how it tends to be tiered, but just great in general with Water Absorb and Wish being a cleric and all that great stuff. It fills so many holes. What I would say though is, I mean, well, yeah, I'll just get right to, I guess, the main issue, I think. No mod above 100 speed is kind of a big problem. Wall breaker sets will eat really well here because they just don't have to worry about anything over 100 speed and they can just creep adamant modest however they want if they're a faster Pokemon. And maybe even go for choice specs or choice band with certain types that are less resisted here. Maybe something like flying, which can only really be stopped by like Magnezone, who's not very long-term durable itself. And I guess I have a weird rare zone Magnezone criticism here. I usually love Magnezone for a team, but I guess I feel like here it's a little wasted in the sense that only Comfy is really making use of it. Every other thing here can kind of work around Steel pretty well. And not that Comfy with a Magnezone pairing is an extremely fearsome thing, but when your high tiers are things like Volcarona and Komodo that can already tear through that shit, high score 2, it's kind of just like maybe not the best use of a tier 2 pick. But still good, still solid, and obviously serving an important role as a flying resist here, which can be nice. Yeah. I guess another compliment, though, I hate to be so negative, is that there's plenty of power here, which is often missed on these sorts of builds. I don't think this team's going to be. This team's not easy to wall, right? You've got things like Komodo and again Volcarona that are just pretty fearsome offensively in their own rights. So yeah, pretty strong on defense and offense. Speed's a bit of an issue, but it remains to be seen how much. I can't see anything here really affording to run Scarf most weeks either, so it'll really be rough dealing with some of those 110 speed plus Pokemon that can just kind of go in. But good team. Good teams this whole batch all around. Here's my numerical ranking. It's stupid. It don't put any faith in it. But if I was right, then it was because I'm a genius and I predicted properly, and if I was wrong, it's because, well, of course, none of this mattered. So yeah, what'd you think? I don't know. Post in chat. Give me a send me a death threat my way, or tell me you liked it. Either way, I'm glad I could rate your teams. Looking forward to playing in the main season in some good old 2016 3DS style formatting. All right.